Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today we've got the pleasure of driving a very special PTS Maritime Blue 2021 Porsche 718 Boxster Spyder. This thing is probably my favorite car that Porsche makes, maybe even over the GT3, because this is a true sports car, and it's the right size. My goodness, it's got a naturally aspirated 4-liter flat six that makes about 414 horsepower, a little over 300 pound-feet of torque. It's derived from the 3-liter twin-turbo engine that you'd find in all of the 991.2s, but then they punched it out and gave us a 4-liter. They did trick us for a little while when this GT4 and Spyder variant were coming out, making us think that we might be getting a GT3 engine, but alas, we are not. And when we get on the road, we'll see how it stacks up and if the character really speaks to a Spyder. But what makes this particular car special is that it was spec'd out specifically by Instagrammer PTS RS. Yes, PTS RS in collaboration with Porsche Westwood actually completely nailed it on this car. Maritime Blue, this color is outrageous because it's got a little purple in it and it changes dramatically from different lighting, from in the clouds to under the sunlight, and it's so much fun to see how it changes. We took it out to some different areas just to get an idea for what it would look like in certain places, but my goodness, this is the move. Silver wheels, of course, black calipers, although don't be fooled, this does have PCCBs, the carbon ceramic brakes. Of course, we've got to have the carbon buckets. It's tricky because sometimes it's a good idea to go with the comfy seats, but this looks really good with the carbon buckets. They're quite comfortable, but especially when you've got roof down, you can't hide your shame with the comfy seats, and it looks pretty dang cool. PTS RS is a very particular man who has probably spec'd out more Porsches in his life that he's dreamed of than anyone else on earth. So everything in this car is exactly the way he wanted it. We've got silver pedals, we have deviated stitching in silver to match the silver seatbelts as well, which match the wheels. All of the plastic they could get rid of in this car has been deleted, even down to the leather fuse box cover. And for the real Porsche nerds, maybe one of the coolest features on this car is paint-matched headlight washers. In the rear, to make sure it wasn't too busy, we only have the Porsche logo back here. We don't have 718 Spyder, but the rest of this is just business. We've got this awesome dual exhaust with a cool diffuser, nice beefy wheels and tires, and a ducktail. And this ducktail just looks better and better the longer I stare at it. Every angle of this ducktail is fantastic. And when you're on the road, this actually rises up. And for those nerds who can't get everything they want out of PTS, you got to go CXX to get paint-matched roll bar hoops. So let's do a quick demo of how this roof goes up and down, because it's pretty trick. So we'll pop this out.
I'm the GM here. I have to be careful just because it's private property. Something happens on private property,
sure,
it becomes a liability.
So we're getting kicked out of this spot, so why don't we go take it for a drive. One of the best parts about the Spyder is that with the windows up, there's like no wind buffeting. So let's get out of here. And I always do this the wrong way, except for that time. Amazing, I got the parking brake down. Even with a PTS Porsche and a friggin' Rolls Royce, we get kicked out of a golf course because we just do not have the prestige. But now we're gonna show you how to do the roof. So we pop this, let's open that up. You gotta have skinny little fingies to get in here, that's for sure. There we go. Porsche definitely didn't think of people with sausage fingers when they went with this car. Okay, and then we just pull this up.
Yeah, just lift it up.
All right, windows automatically went down for me, that's cool. So then we come here, we press this little button to pop these out. There's a button in the fabric. Pop these in. There we go. Back in the car, make sure that this is held down a little bit, and then we use that center button. That'll do.
Yeah.
How you can just jump into this car and become part of it, like immediately. Oh, God, this is good. This is so good. And honestly, I think I prefer this kind of amount of power level to, let's say, thank you, what a nice person. I think I prefer this power level to, say, a GT3. I mean, a GT3 is a very fast car, especially now. You can't always exploit it the way you can with something like this. Oh, it does sound good when you're in it. It really does. And it's not so offensive that it's going to wake the dead. I really like the way they laid out the controls here, because I've got a button for my suspension, I've got a button for my auto blip, which means that I don't have to have that auto blip on in some certain mode, where it used to be kind of complex to turn that off. Very easy, now it's not on. And it's just me operating everything. Oh man, the shifter is fantastic, but we'll get to that in a second. The other thing too is that the auto start stop on this vehicle is not just for the auto start stop. This 4-liter engine has cylinder deactivation, and it's kind of annoying, if I'm honest, the way that this thing kind of changes tone when it shuts off those cylinders. So, you know, honestly, I recommend turning that off all the time unless you're just trying to save fuel. But if you're trying to have fun and you don't want to hear that noise, then just turn off the auto start stop. But anyway, that's not the point. The point of this car is about driving dynamics, not Porsche cheating its way into getting great cars into our hands, even with the current emissions systems. And this 982 718 Boxster Spyder is a lot more like a GT4 than it used to be in the 981 Boxster Spyder. So this car shares a lot of its DNA with the GT4. They really went crazy with it. I gotta make sure I don't have the auto blip on. I don't. I promise I don't. This car is just so intuitive and easy to drive. But my goodness, the way this thing turns in, the amount of grip you have, and with the carbon ceramic brakes, not gonna dig too deep because I don't want to throw my cameras around, but my goodness, does this thing just haul. And it's a great sports car, because here's the thing, it's not just an RS type thing where it's like, hey, let's go as fast as possible on a racetrack. This thing is designed, oh, I guess we're going here. Look at these brakes, man. No questions about it. This thing is designed for the street. It's designed for somebody who really wants to enjoy their car as a sports car. It revs out to like 8,000 RPM. I wasn't really expecting that from this 4-liter engine. The joy in driving your sports car isn't just in going fast. I love a top-down experience, kind of becoming one with nature while you tear through it. That's the best thing in the world. So I think one thing that's missing in this 718 Spyder is a little more of a wild exhaust, but the owner of this car has one on order already. Now this is plenty, and I think it's totally fair to call this exciting, and it sounds fantastic. I mean, look, never gonna complain about a flat 6. I just think it could be a little more outrageous, and he's going to make it that way. I'm gonna be honest, when this car was announced, I wanted it, and I wanted it because I wanted an NA Boxster. I wanted not to have a 4-cylinder turbo. That engine, as much as it does incredible things and it's torquey and powerful in the standard 718S, there's just a real connection missing from the car that cannot be replaced with something that sounds too much like a Subaru. And I apologize if I'm offending any 718 or 718S owners. They're still great cars. The chassis is fantastic, but I just can't get behind that engine. And when I found out they were going to put a 4-liter in the GT4 and the Spyder, I figured the Spyder was the way to go. Now you also have the option to get the GTS. They're using this engine in the GTS as well, which I think is like the sweet spot for that variant. I'm blown away. Ooh, this sounds so good. Wow. And I just think the top-down experience in the Spyder is really unlike anything else. And the top isn't so difficult to put down like it has been in the past. It wasn't always, it was a project in older cars. Now, it's just manual. You know, it's manual, but it's not difficult. This gearbox feels so good in the hand. Oh my goodness, this shifter. I don't even know where to begin. I'm so happy. It looks a little weird when you get in the car. If you have the pleasure of sitting in one of these cars at a dealership, it may look like it's in a strange spot, but this is right next to my hand. So I don't have to reach very far from wheel to shifter to get to my next gear, and I love that. And it's just the right amount of throw. Every gate is precise and easy to find. There's no questions about it. The throttle response, basically perfect. I mean, this is great that you can just jump in this car and instantly be familiar with where your foot needs to go to get the revs that you want to match for the next gear. And that's just the mapping. This engine just responds instantly to inputs. It's fantastic. The second you crack open that throttle, things are happening. There are cars that I would say auto blip would be a very helpful feature, frankly, because sometimes auto blip is great in a car that has bad throttle mapping. Aston Martin, I'm looking at you. But not in the Porsche. The Porsche, everything just comes together. It's so intuitive. They really know how to marry an engine, a transmission, a clutch, and a throttle pedal with a driver. Oh, the front end of this car, it just hooks and goes. Oh my goodness. I think it's so well balanced. I mean, what could be better than a mid-engine Porsche? I know we're supposed to appreciate and love our rear engine 911 friends, but the way this kind of just fits into your life, the way it becomes part of you, it's just so easy to jump in. This is what a car feels like. I don't know how else to say it. One thing that's really weird about this car is that you don't need to add throttle in first. So let me just show you. I'm just gonna let out of the clutch, okay? Do you hear that? It's doing that for me. It's adding that throttle. What I love about this engine too is all this low down juicy torque. It's actually really great throughout the power band. Now it still does have a little bit of that trouble that the old Spyder and GT4 had, where the gearing is fairly long, and that's fine. We gotta turn this exhaust on. We gotta live that life. But here's the thing, the character of this engine, I think from a power perspective, is fantastic. It's really usable. They've done an incredible job of making an engine that just has torque everywhere. It's so usable all throughout the rev range. But it doesn't have like the howl of, let's say, a GT3 from any generation. But that doesn't mean it's not satisfying. And it really starts to come alive coming at 5,000 RPM. So the car does not have a nose lift. Not like you're going to be using a nose lift at these speeds, but it does give you a little bit of pause when you're driving into low parking lots or driveways. And I find the fact that you can take these roads with some alacrity in a sports car like this is really incredible. Although we've just found a dirt road, which is probably not ideal, but don't worry, because this has like a $12,000 PTS paint job, it has PPF on it and it's been ceramic coated, so we should be just fine. I don't think you're gonna find any other dirt road drives in a 718 Boxster Spyder. So thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thank you to PTSRS for speccing out a beautiful car. I mean, really, this is the first time he's had his name on a car. I don't even know where to go from that. That is so cool. That is just so cool. I think we'll spend a little more time in this car, but I wanted to give you my first impressions. They're good. I like it a lot. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. The steering is weighted really nicely. Obviously, we're working with an e-pass system, so it doesn't have the most tactility in the world. There are obviously better steering racks out there, maybe not in modern times, but in the past, I feel like there's things that I enjoy more, that I can feel more through the front end. However, this is a sports car that I would like to be able to drive and enjoy and just pick up the keys without question, and knowing that I have kind of the perfect amount of damping in this steering, coupled with very precise inputs, motions, everything goes where I want it to go. I'm never questioning, and it's not dialed in too abruptly. I don't know, man. I don't know where you go from here. I think if you can get one of these cars, go get one. If you were wondering, should I go get a Spyder? Oh, I have an allocation for a Spyder, or I'm about to collect my Spyder. Should I take it? Or maybe you have an allocation for a 992 GT3. I'm sure the 992 GT3 is going to be great. But if you're like a sports car guy, this is the thing.